হ্যাঁ, ক্লাসের পরে টাইম হবে।
স্যার মানে অ্যাকচুয়ালি নতুন একটা নিয়েছি ডিভাইস, ল্যাপটপ নিয়েছি তো স্যার, ভিজুয়াল স্টুডিও কোডটা না স্যার মানে রান করছে না ঠিকঠাক, একবার দেখিয়ে দিবেন।
ওকে, ডান ডান, we will look into that. আচ্ছা, কি বলার ছিল জানো? জাস্ট a minute, let me uh, so there is another thing for trigger, that is trigger dispatcher concept. Okay, so last day what we have discussed is that trigger logic should be written in trigger handler, and from trigger we will call the trigger handler, right? But the
হ্যাঁ
most optimal way to handle this is that having another layer in between. How to look into that? Let me share my screen. This thing is called trigger dispatcher. So what is trigger dispatcher? So say, just give me a minute. What is trigger dispatcher and how that works? Okay, I have given one link, from there you can read it. Only thing is that how it works, that is the important part. This one. I have already given this to you. Okay. You will get the best practices and all these things here as well. So what is the concept? The concept is you have your triggers. This is the dispatcher, and this is the handler or helper or whatever it is. Now you have your account trigger, say contact trigger, and whatever it is, opportunity trigger. And you have your handlers, say account trigger handler one, and say you have trigger handler two as well. Then say you have your contact trigger handler. Handler or helper, whatever you may say here. Though handler and helper actually means different things, but right now I am using that interchange. We were saying that within your account trigger, you should not write the logic. The logic should go to your trigger handler. So from trigger, you will call the trigger handler, and the method, whatever you have written there, that will be executed in a specific context. Context means whether that is insert, update, or delete, undelete, or whether it is before or after, all these things. Fine. Now, what we are saying is that your trigger should not be called, should not be calling your handlers. It should go via trigger dispatcher. What is a trigger dispatcher? Trigger dispatcher is one intermediate class between trigger and trigger handler. Okay, so it is a single class. All your triggers will call the dispatcher. All your triggers. So your all the triggers will go via this dispatcher to the handler. So this is my then this one will become my controlling unit. What is controlling unit? Is that for any event, whether I have to call the handler or not, I will take decision from dispatcher. For anywhere, the trigger recursion, we have discussed about trigger recursion, right? So to block the trigger recursion, we will follow this trigger dispatcher. Why? Already we say there are multiple trigger handlers written, and for multiple events you have written lots of code. Now how we will understand when or how it might create this issue of trigger recursion? If all the logic are called from one place, like say account trigger is calling contact, say one of you is writing account trigger, another one is writing contact trigger. So it will become difficult to understand whether while writing, after writing this, whether there will be any recursion or not. But if it is in a single class, if the trigger dispatcher is actually handling all this distribution of logic, then you can see that from contact trigger there is something, in account trigger there is something. So uh, in that way, handling that recursion becomes little easy. That is one thing. Second thing, more important part. Say I have to block all these things, all these triggers when I am doing data load. Say I am doing data load, at that time I don't want to execute any of these triggers. Okay, or there is some situation where I am going to upload account and contact, not the opportunity. Okay, so I just want to deactivate account trigger and contact trigger. What is the best way to do this? The best way is that we will create one custom settings or custom metadata. We will put the object name, whatever object it is. For that, I will define one boolean variable, boolean field, and that field value would be true or false. Okay, if that value is true, then my trigger, that is the trigger logic, should execute. If that is false, then trigger logic should not execute. What I can do, say I have account trigger, I have written multiple things, but all of these are coming through this dispatcher, and from here the handlers are getting called. So in dispatcher only, from where I have written the dispatcher, in one place only I have to check that condition. From that custom settings, I will fetch that variable value, like that field value, and check if that is true. Say for account trigger, if the value is true, then my all the account trigger handlers should get called. So that is only one section or one block. Another block I am checking that for contact. In that way, sorry, all the triggers of all the objects I can just check in a single place. And another thing, in that custom metadata, I can just have one row where object name is all, and the boolean true or false value can control execution of all these triggers. That is, if that all is false, then whatever the custom metadata value for the individual objects, that will ignore. It will only uh, first it will check that all one. If that is false, then all these triggers, all these trigger logics will be blocked. How we can do that? The simplest way is that putting this dispatcher and putting that all condition, checking of all condition at the beginning. Okay, beginning of the method, and within that chunk we will call all the dispatchers, sorry, all the handlers. In that way, we can stop the execution of trigger logic through configuration. Like, say I am doing data load, at that time I cannot deactivate the trigger directly. So what I have to do, I have to deactivate that in UAT and then deploy it, and then do the data load, and then again upload it, again deploy the trigger with active thing. The most difficult part is that the test coverage in this kind of situation. If I have to do this, the better way is that I will use that trigger handler and dispatcher, and from dispatcher I will control the calling of these handlers. This event controller, actually trigger is the event controller. Once I do that, and after that, what will happen, like through that custom metadata, I can just change the value from true to false to stop the execution, and again false to true to start that execution. It would be the easiest way. And this is called factory pattern, and this is actually the standard way uh, we should be implementing trigger whenever there is a new project, and we have to handle this from the beginning. Because in middle of the thing, if we are trying to do this, it would be too much of effort. I'm not sure whether you will get that time or not. But if it is beginning of a project and we have to write lots of triggers for that, better way is that uh, using this way. That is, you will have a trigger dispatcher from, and in trigger dispatcher you can just make that simply static if required, because you can only, like, it is up to you. I'm not saying that it is hard and fast. Only thing is that there should be only one method, because this method is actually controlling all the events. If I am writing multiple methods here, then it will not serve my purpose properly. Otherwise I have to look for each and every method separately. It should be only one method, and that method should be controlling all these things. So in trigger, what are my things, how it is divided? In trigger, I will check the context, that is before, after, insert, update, delete, all these things, and then I will call the trigger dispatcher. Work of trigger is done once it is calling the dispatcher. In dispatcher, what it will do, it will not think about before, after, all these things for now. Because you can do this kind of logic as well. Like, for a specific situation, you can only execute the before trigger and not the after triggers. Just the same way I have told, like, you can just add another attribute, another field, and put that true or false, before true and before false, this kind of things. But for now, just think that we are controlling the execution as a whole, not the before, after, and all these things. So trigger will actually identify the context, in which context I have to do something. trigger dispatcher will identify whether my configuration and all these things are proper to execute this trigger logic, because it is a correct time, because whatever I am doing, whether I would be executing the trigger logic now or not, depending upon that custom metadata. And this handler will be uh, concentrating on the logic only, nothing else. Like what logic I have to put for this specific scenario, that method will be within this. So this is how the job distribution is done. Important thing is this job distribution, because if you can break the things, you can conquer it well. That's it. Any question till now? So everybody got the idea what I was trying to say?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So if we are good, then we will move on to integration thing. Uh, Important part is that you go through the links which I have provided to you. Okay. So when you will look into these things, if there are questions, just write it down somewhere. Next week we will not have that this class. So after next to next week, we will discuss all those questions first, and then we will move on. Okay. So just write down all those questions in one place so that you don't forget.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, and most of the time, what happens, like you ask me questions when you are stuck, but I am stuck with some other thing, so I cannot respond that immediately. So better thing is to put the questions in a same place, and then we can discuss in the next call as a whole. Okay, now let's come back to the integration. So I have given the basic idea of integration. What is integration? Okay. So one is like we have two different systems, and these two systems are talking to each other. That is, they are interchanging data, or one system is actually consuming data of another system. That's what we are doing through integration. Just give me a minute. I'm getting one call. I have to think. Okay, so the thing is that integration, you know what is the basic idea. Now, how we can do that? What is the way to communicate? So, two different system means they are having some different things altogether. So, there must be some standardization. Standardization means protocol. Protocol means set of rules which everybody will follow. Otherwise, I am sending something and the other system is not able to understand that. Then that integration will not work, right? So what we have to do? We have to standardize things. So that was standardized. Two standard ways of doing callouts and the way the data should go. There are two specific things we will see. One is SOAP, which will read XML format. Let's not go into SOAP and REST for now. There are two data formats we would be using. Either we will use XML or we will use REST. Sorry, JSON. Either XML or JSON. How XML looks like? This is the format of XML. What happens? The starting point will start with a tag. Okay. This is just like a HTML tag, but HTML has specific tags. Here, the tags are not specific. Here, you will find that note is the root node. Uh, Say you are sending some message, that message needs to be encrypted like this. Say you are sending one contact details or account details. So how it will be? It will be account at the top and it will be closed by slash account. Here you will find all the attributes. Okay. Like it will be name. Here you will put name, the name of the account, the value actual, and then it will get closed. Then the email and phone number and blah 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 blah, whatever you want to send or receive. So this is the format of XML. Okay, most of the time this XML thing you can look into this. These are very and one of the thing is sample JSON. Let me open some sample JSON. Look at this. This is the sample JSON file, and here how it will work. Forget about these things for now. Say this is, you have to send data of account. You will put account here. This third bracket will not be there in that scenario. Like um where to say this is not a good one. So it will start with second bracket, and here you will have the key value pair. Okay, it would be key value pair. Before that, here it would be something like second bracket account second bracket. Within second bracket you will have name equal colon name value, uh, phone number, here the phone number value, email, the value of email, and it will be closed by second bracket. Anyway, by looking into this structure, these two structures, you can understand that we have to put less things here. It is so simple and it is less things. So always remember that JSON is lightweight. JSON is always lightweight, and XML is little heavyweight than JSON. Okay. Now, why then we would be using XML? Ideally, we should be using XML when we are using a specific type of integration. What is that specific type of integration?
Soap.
Right. When we will be using SOAP, we will be using XML ideally. With REST, ideally we would be use JSON. In REST, we can use XML as well. That is not a big deal. We can use XML. But why should I use a heavyweight thing when I can use a lightweight thing? So lightweight things means that will take lesser time, that would have lesser complexity. And nowadays you have this uh, JSON format reading. Like there are specific methods which can read the JSON format in Apex as well. So primarily, remember these two types, SOAP and REST, we can use. Mostly we will use XML when we are using SOAP, and ideally we should be using JSON when we are doing the REST API. Now, what is the difference between SOAP and REST? We will come to that. Okay. Now, there are two things. One is some standard way of integration SOAP. How that works in SOAP surveys, what will happen that whoever is exposing the data means, say there is some external system, XYZ system, and that system is exposing data to Salesforce. That means that system will provide you some WSDL file. WSDL file will be provided by that system. And in Salesforce, we will generate the Apex classes through or with the help of that WSDL, with that WSDL. Okay. So if Salesforce needs to expose data, in that scenario, what we will do? We will generate WSDL from Salesforce. Okay. And we will give that WSDL to that external system. How that works, like in Salesforce, how we can generate external system, how they will generate, that is up to them. We will only consume. How we can generate WSDL in Salesforce? There are two types of WSDL we can generate. One is enterprise WSDL, one is partner WSDL. uh, this is not the best one. This is the correct one. So what you will do, you will generate WSDL, and for WSDL you don't have to do anything. You will have to click, you have to do some click, and the WSDL will be generated. Two types of WSDL we can generate. WSDL, that is Web Service Description Language. Okay, full form of WSDL. Enterprise WSDL and partner WSDL. A WSDL is an XML document. Remember this. And WSDL is an XML document. So WSDL will look like this. Where is that? WSDL will look like this format. The WSDL is used by the developers to aid in the creation of Salesforce integration pieces. A typical process involves using the development environment. That is, in any other language, what they will do to consume the WSDL. So someone is generating the WSDL, another one is consuming the WSDL. Okay, here say from Salesforce we are generating the WSDL and generate classes which are then referenced in the integration. What is the difference between enterprise WSDL and partner WSDL? Enterprise WSDL is strongly typed. Okay, the enterprise WSDL is tied, bound to a specific configuration of Salesforce, that is specific organization Salesforce configuration. The enterprise WSDL changes if modifications, that is custom field or custom object, if that is created or edited or modified, then the enterprise WSDL will be changed. Like you have created your system and you are actually when you are exposing that to user with enterprise WSDL, if there is a change in the object, if there is a change in the custom field, you have to regenerate the WSDL and you have to reshare it. Okay, are made to an organization Salesforce configuration. That is the standard one. Okay. For the reason outlined above, the enterprise WSDL is intended primarily for customers. Okay, customers means when you are having some specific customer and that customer should have limited access to your organization, your changes, your modifications should not automatically get reflected at their end. At that time you should be providing enterprise WSDL. Okay, and what is partner WSDL? The partner WSDL is loosely typed. The partner WSDL can be used to reflect against any configuration of Salesforce, that is any organization Salesforce configuration. The partner WSDL is static and hence does not change if modifications are made to an organization's Salesforce configuration. Okay, so partner WSDL means when you are exposing this, it is static. You don't need to go and change the partner WSDL every time. So how you can do this? What you can do? In Classic, how to download this WSDL, you don't need to write it, you will generate this WSDL. Okay, so you can just log in and go to this follow these steps to go to the intended portion, and you can download the file in your local machine. That's how it works. Okay, and once you have downloaded it, you will expose you will share that to the you will share that to the to your client, like who is going to access Salesforce. So it is something like how you are exposing it. Now how you are consuming WSDL, that is another thing. Like your customer or your partner or with whom you are working with, the other system guys, they will provide you WSDL. Anyone saying anything?
Yes, sir. I have
Hmm.
some queries, sir.
Hmm.
Sir, I cannot understand the process actually. So what I have to do first? I have to write the JSON or generate the
JSON
WM.
and JSON is a data format. Okay. Right now we are talking about SOAP integration. In SOAP, it is done with uh, WSDL file, that is XML. So concept of REST is not here. Did you get my point?
Yes.
When we will
But
be
that means,
handling REST service, right now we are handling SOAP. SOAP is a process, a method I was showing you. SOAP is a process of integration where JSON is not involved, where XML is involved. How XML is involved? The format of WSDL is XML format. XML is one document that you will generate from Salesforce and you will send that to your counterpart, whoever is doing that integration, whoever is going to consume Salesforce services. That person or that system actually will consume our wisdom. So how they can consume until and unless we can share it. So how we can share it? We have to go to setup and we have to go to integration API and we have to download the wisdom and then we can share it. There are two types of wisdom we can share. One is enterprise wisdom, one is partner wisdom. These two things have two different properties that I was showing you. Till this point, is this clear?
Yeah. Now this is clear.
Okay, Priyanka, you were asking something.
no, sir. I think that for soap, I have to generate whistle first.
Yes, first we have to generate and then we can
Okay,
share
sir.
that wisdom. So this is when some other system is trying to connect Salesforce and trying to capture data or get data or to update data in Salesforce. That is Salesforce to this is actually called the outbound from Salesforce. Okay, so that is Salesforce is actually, or you can say this is inbound to Salesforce. That is, they are actually consuming service of Salesforce. Let's not get into this inbound or outbound because that will get you will get confused with that. So Salesforce service is getting consumed by external system. That's what I was explaining till now. Okay. Now I am going to explain how we Salesforce can consume service of any other system. How we can do that? For that, we have to do few things. What is that? First is that we have to receive the wisdom. So previously we were sharing the wisdom and the other system was receiving that wisdom. Now we will be receiving that wisdom from them. And once we receive that wisdom, we have to do few things. So just give me a minute. Anyway, so now what we can do, we can receive some wisdom. Once we receive that wisdom, we have to do few things. What we have to do, these are the steps you have to follow. Authorize endpoint address. What is authorize endpoint address? Whatever uh, link we are going to hit, there would be some link. In wisdom there would be some link. That thing we have to add in remote site settings. Okay, first thing is that we have to add that in remote site settings. Second thing is that we have to import that wisdom within uh, Salesforce to generate the stub class. So that thing I will tell you. Now what is remote site settings? Just understand that part first. Salesforce when you are just hitting some external URL, Salesforce does not allow that by default. Salesforce think that you are trying to do some hacking or something like that, and there would be security issues. So first you have to make Salesforce understand that this is one of the URL I am going to hit to do something. To authorize that external URL, you have to go to remote site settings. From setup, you can write just remote site settings. There, with some name, you can actually specify the remote site settings. This is one of the URL. And then, and you should be giving the root URL, not the end URL. The root URL you should be giving in remote site settings. Once you give this remote site settings, you create this remote site settings, then this URL should be considered as a valid URL to be called from your code. Okay. So how it works, like the external system, how they should be connecting to Salesforce with test.salesforce.com or login.salesforce.com or your specific URL, like the with the domain name, whatever you have created. With that thing, they will connect. That URL they will connect with some specific username and password. They will connect. That connection part I will tell you later. But this is the way they will connect, right? Same way, when we are actually connecting any other system, we should have some URL, some username, some password, until and unless that is a free and open URL, open thing. Okay. So the external URL, when we are trying to call that from our code or from that integration class, it will not allow you to call until and unless you put this thing in remote site settings. That is the first step. Now, the second thing. Hmm, this is a service that we can do. I just want to see whether. Right. This one I was looking for. Look at this. This is one of the sample WSDL, WSDL. You can see this format. Like this is the first tag of XML version and encoding. UTF-8 is the encoding. Here you have WSDL definition. That WSDL definition is coming from W3 school schema and blah blah blah. And then you have these specific things like you are consuming some string, some some operation is happening with by country name. You don't need to understand this actually. You only need to understand the initial things, whether this format is correct or not, those things. Okay. Don't just a minute. This fine. Is it there multiple times? Ah, you will see this like what part you have to understand, that is important here. Let's do this. I will not do this. I'll let you do. Only thing I will explain what are the things we have to do. So what we have understood till now, that if we have to use SOAP, then we will be manipulating or using WSDL files, and that is in XML format. And when we are using this, we have to do the remote site settings first when we are consuming SOAP service. If we have to expose SOAP service, we have to generate the WSDL and share. If we have to consume SOAP service, then we have to parse the WSDL, and then by parsing that WSDL, we have to create the Apex class. Okay, and that WSDL we will receive from external system. So what we have done, we have just downloaded one sample XML, and we have to, like, I am not putting the remote site settings, that you will do through this trailhead. How we can parse one WSDL, that I am just showing you. If you come to custom code and Apex classes, you have one button, generate from WSDL. So here what you have to do, choose one file. I have put this. Now parse WSDL is the parsing is successful. Okay. The following Apex class name were derived from the WSDL document namespace. Blah blah blah, whatever it is. Now let's generate the Apex code. How it is done, I'm not sure. It should be giving you some error, but anyway. So from that WSDL, two different classes are created. If you go to this class, so the previous one was not humanly readable format, but here it is humanly readable, right? You can say this the endpoint. The endpoint is given. Here it is public or it is open. That's why there is no username password. Otherwise, you will have seen that credential things here, which would be used. And from that WSDL itself, it has generated these classes. Okay. Look at this thing, what I was just trying to show you. Web service dot call out. This is one of the important method. Go through this method and you know how to find out that what is the description of a method. Park service or what I have opened. Oh, I have opened both. Here you can see again, this is the endpoint. Okay. Map header it's where is that call out? This is what I was trying to find out. This web service dot call out web service call out dot invoke. This is the method by which that before that everything is preparation for this call out. This call out dot invoke is a method by which you are actually calling the integration, and this is actually generated from your wisdom. Only thing is that what I was trying to say, which we haven't faced here, probably you will face in your real life, is that when we are parsing this, we have parsed this, right? We have parsed and we have created these two classes. But in WSDL, when you are looking into this, try to understand this format, and at the bottom you will find this thing, WSDL binding. Okay. WSDL binding is Binding means there is some port by which it is bound. These are called soft ports. What is port? Anyone can tell me?
Ports can be a logical address or a tunnel from where we can get data.
Okay. Port can be physical or logical. Okay. If port is physical, it is called hard port. If it is logical, then it is called soft port. Okay. Whatever service, whatever service means in your system, in your machine, if you are actually doing anything, any work, any application you are using, that is nothing but a service. Okay. And that service is executing in one logical port. Ideally, everything nowadays executes in logical port. But there can be physical ports in your system, like USB port, LAN port. Those are the ports. Ports means a portion or a joint portion or a conjunction or a place where you can connect and you can access something. That is called port. So USB port is a physical port, hard port, and here whatever applications we are accessing, that should be via some port, but those ports are soft ports. Soft port means that is logical. There is no physical entity of that. So your um, when you access any uh, website, say, so website is actually that executes in 8080 port in general, either 80 or 8080. Your local server, when you are actually executing any local server in your machine, that also have some port, has some port. Okay. Same way, when we are connecting to through integration, that means that is providing you some service. So if it is providing you some service, there will be some port, and generally ports are nothing but uh, accumulation of some character to name that port. So that can be a numeric value, that can be some characters. Here you can see that the port name is character. Parks IMPL service soap binding. This is the name of the port. Whatever the details of the port, that is given here, and that binding you can see this is the binding, port binding. Why I am telling you these two tags specifically? Because you can see there are multiple services. Whenever you are looking into this, you can see multiple services in one WSDL. Not might not be in this WSDL, but in any WSDL you are receiving, there can be multiple services. Multiple services means, say there is some another system which is having account contact opportunity, and with a single WSDL they have provided you insert, update, delete of all three objects. So those are actually say those three are three different bindings. Three different service means three different services provided to you, and three different services are exposed to you through a single port. Through a single port. That is, the port name is same for them. Like you are saying this thing, it can be the same kind of set can be there, and that can be giving you different service. That is possible. So that means uniport binding or single port binding is there in that WSDL. The issue with Salesforce is that Salesforce does not allow single port binding. That is, multiple services exposed in single port in a single file, that is not allowed by Salesforce. So Salesforce cannot handle that thing. What you need to do in a single in a single class, a single Apex tab, if you have to handle all these things, three different services in a single port, that will throw you error. So I have shown you this parsing. Here you are seeing that the following generated classes completed successfully with no error. Here you will see that there is one error or two error or three errors, and those are binding errors. You can see this issue or error, that is multi-port binding error is there. So when there is, you can see this kind of issues, what you have to do, you have to go to this WSDL, you have to open it, some text pad or something like that, and you have to check these bindings. If you see that with same name, the bindings are there, that means multiple services are opened, multiple services are exposed through a single port. That is called multi-port binding. Multi-port binding in a single port, actually. So that will not be, that cannot be consumed in Salesforce directly. What you have to do, you have to put those bindings in different XMLs. So from one XML, you will create 2-3 different XMLs. I will show you in next class probably. Just I am explaining the things to get the understanding of this thing. That is, if there are multiple services exposed in one WSDL, you have to create multiple WSDLs from that single WSDL, and you have to keep only the relative relevant or only one service in that WSDL, and the other WSDL you can just create with 1, 2, 3, 4 name, whatever it is, and you have to parse all those WSDLs separately. So one from one WSDL, if you will break it into multiple WSDL, so that that can have only one service in that WSDL, and you have to parse them separately, and that will create different classes for you. And once it is created, then you can do some modification there. Like this class was generated from that WSDL, but I can change it. I can just edit it, and I can do anything. Like I can just write some code here itself, or I can put some code here, or I can change the name, or I can do anything with that class. Only thing is that the initial class is generated from that WSDL. So ideally, most of the scenario, you don't have to do anything. When you are consuming WSDL, that is, service is exposed by other system, what we have to do in Salesforce, we have to register the remote site settings. If this is your endpoint, if this is your endpoint, you will put till this part in your remote site. Once your remote site is ready, or that you can do after parsing this as well, you have to do actually two things. One is remote site settings, creation of new remote site settings, and you have to parse the WSDL to generate these classes. Once that is done, then from your own class, like whatever Apex class you are using, you can call this class and method. This is the class. Go into these things. What is web service call out future? Why it needs to be extended? What is the reason for that? And blah blah blah. Whatever is written, all these things. Just go through each and individual classes. You can see here the standard classes you are seeing of your own. But only thing is that this class is generated, this class name, and this is another class. Where is that method? Both of them are classes. I believe the method is here. This is the method. You can just call this method, and this is a public generic thing. So this port name, you have to use one object of this class, and that object dot this method name. The simple way how we can call a method that we can do to consume this integration, to utilize this integration. So only thing is that what we have to do is that we have to do the remote site settings. We have to generate these stub classes. These classes are called stub when we are generating classes from WSDL. So we have to parse the WSDL and generate these classes, and we have to know which method we have to call, specifically which method we have to call, and by calling that method we can just consume their service. It is that easy. You are not writing code of your own. There might be scenarios you are changing some of these things, some parameters, some uh, username, password, blah blah things, but you are not going to write the whole class of your own. That is the facility of SOAP. Okay, so I am not moving towards REST today. You just go through the trailhead. In the trailhead, what you will do, you will go to the trailhead. There will be integration service. Within integration service, you will look into two units: Apex integration overview, Apex SOAP callout. These two things you will look into. Nothing else. Asynchronous Apex is another module. If you haven't gone through that till now, then go through that and look into the future method. Future method and queuable, these two things you need to know. I'm just sharing that as well in the group. So what we have seen till now, that is the basic overview of SOAP service and REST service, how we can do, how we can how we can expose SOAP service, and how we can consume SOAP service. Exposing SOAP service is quite easy. Generate the WSDL and share that with those people. And consuming SOAP service, that get the WSDL, put that endpoint, open that WSDL and find out the endpoint, or generate the classes and find the endpoint, put that endpoint in the remote site settings, and while using generate Apex class from WSDL button, uh, generate the classes from that WSDL and utilize those methods. This is the most simple thing to do the integration. There are other ways of doing integration and other things of doing integration that we will consume in the consecutive classes. I am not moving towards those right now because it might be overwhelming for you. You just grab these things first, then we will move on. And in between, if you haven't looked into future method, asynchronous ways of executing Apex, then please go through that first before looking into these modules. I have shared the trailhead with you. Okay.